this month is February, and of course Lady Eaton College is sponsoring a month of Black History and Heritage. Every Wednesday this month there are activities jam-packed going on, but we couldn't do this without the help of many of our sponsors and student help as well. So I'd like to thank OPERG for their support of Black History and Heritage Month here at Lady Eaton College. I'd also like to thank CUPE, which is the union for the contract teachers at Trent University. Thank you for their support. I'd also like to thank the Community and Race Relations Committee of Peterborough for their support as well in this, the Lady Eaton College Cabinet who is supporting us, and Lady Eaton College that's supporting as well. So thanks to all of our sponsors and supporters here. Again, what we're going to do now is we're going to shift gears a bit. We're actually filming today for Trent Talks. Trent Talks is our blatant ripoff of TED Talks. Don't film that. Basically, we've been doing this for a year or so, and it's a lot of talking. Professor heads talking about issues of the day. Well, I'm sick and tired of hearing professors blah 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 talk all the time. So I want to hear you guys talk. And this Trent Talks, this debate is going to end, and discussion will involve you. Because it is being filmed, there is a chance that you may be filmed. So if you do not want to be filmed, you may want to tell us now, and we can position you in a place that's away from the cameras. And if you really want to be filmed, we can position you in a place with your best angle. So please tell me right now, is there any, and either way is good. Is there everybody's okay with us filming the proceedings today? Wonderful. Again, so this will be our Trent Talk, and I'm very pleased to introduce Ola, who is the Living Learning, you'll be moderating the event.
Yeah. And
so to introduce her as the moderator for this and talk. So Ola.
So hello everyone, my name is Ola, and I'm the Living Learning Coordinator here at LEC. So I just work with a group of students, and we work on events. We do a lot of discussions about leadership and civic engagement. Dr. Ewan and I spoke about what we could do for Black History Month. And what I really wanted to do, what I have never really gotten to do, is have a discussion with my peers about the Black experience. So when I say the Black experience, and again, I'm just going to acknowledge that we do a very diverse population here. Please feel free to talk. Don't feel like, oh, I don't have no right to talk because I'm not Black or anything. Please share, that's why we're all here. There's no point in having a discussion when no one talks. So, when I say the Black experience, what does that mean?
I worked with community and race relations for a time, and when I worked for them, it was in like a summer student position. It was an anti-racism resource position, and so I had to delve into a lot of the history in Peterborough. And I've always known that there's a very big legacy of racism in Peterborough. It's actually one of the first KKK coalitions was in Peterborough, and there are actually rural areas outside of Peterborough where it's illegal for Black people to own property. It's not that people don't own property there, but it's just a law that hasn't been changed yet. So it's just to show how racism is permeated in this society per se. And when I first came to Trent, I heard stories about how Black people were thrown out of bars, and how still today it's a struggle for many people of color to even get housing, and they're turned away because of those factors, but never blatantly told so. Mm-hmm. So there's an underlying racism as well. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Is there a singular Black experience? No. I think it depends on who you come in contact with. Mm-hmm. So if we all come in contact with the same group of people, we might have the same experience. Yeah. If you come in contact with different professors, for example, your experience might be different.
It also depends on where you're coming from. Mm-hmm. If you're from an environment where you're very exposed to different backgrounds, you might be okay with every people that you encounter here. Mm-hmm. But if you're coming from somewhere like Jane and Finch, where you don't really interact with people of other sets, maybe minorities that you interact with, it's different. Mm-hmm. It's different.
Has that been a similar experience from any other people?
I just want to say that the Black experience, I guess you could say it also depends on how that individual carries themselves. You know, for example, if I walk around like a thug or a gangster or whatever, like I'm from the streets with no home training, no education, and none of that, I'm not gonna get respect regardless, you know. But if I carry myself in a manner that demands respect from people, you know, I'm gonna get it. You know, so it all depends on how you carry yourself. I feel.
It's a very uncomfortable conversation to be having, and I think that's the importance of having these conversations, because that sort of white guilt. Should it stays here is because my great-grandfather owned slaves, or because my great-grandfathers or whatever were like proponents of residential schooling. It's automatic to sort of feel bad about it and not be able to have discussions about it, but that's counterproductive, because in not having discussions about it, we're still going to have marginalization in society, we're still going to have racism, and we're still going to have segregation.
I think like when you think about sort of like what your family did or like what your race has done in the past, and especially if it's been marginalizing or doing injustices to others, it's really hard not to feel guilty. But I think it's also really important to remember that regardless of your race, or I guess, yeah, regardless of your race, like you can't help where you were born and how you were born and what you were born into and who your ancestors are. That's not something any of us can help. So really it's sort of like, what do you do with that now, instead of looking back on the past and always feeling guilty or angry or sort of any other emotions like that.
Morale brought up a comment about seeing people as people and not seeing race. And that's a comment that's brought up a lot. And can anyone think of why people would have an issue with not seeing race or not seeing ethnicity?
You're not really seeing the person for who they are. You're seeing the person for what you want to see, kind of thing. When somebody's black, Aboriginal, whatnot, you notice that. So why pretend that you don't notice it? It's like being pretentious. Yes, I noticed that you're a person of color, you're from wherever you're from, but that shouldn't stop me from interacting with you or from seeing the good in you. But we need to acknowledge the differences in order to accept them. You know what I mean? If I say that,
but why is the fact that you have a different color of skin to me have to be acknowledged, whereas like if I have a different color of hair, like I guess why do I have to I understand acknowledge your culture, your context, appreciate where you're from and everything like that, but why do you understand
acknowledging it, you might be thinking of it from a negative standpoint. Acknowledging something does not mean just looking at the negativity of it. Just noticing that there is a difference. You know what I mean? If you're black, but that doesn't mean anything. You acknowledge another person is this, because there's certain cultures or beliefs that comes with that. You know what I mean? So by not acknowledging the person by race, you're really not accepting them as a whole, because they cannot change their skin color. That is who they are. So if you're saying that I don't see you as being black, I see you as being a person, then you're not seeing the whole person. That's how I see it.
I think a huge part of what determines the black experience is also stereotypes. Like for me especially, I'm an African, but most people don't realize Africa is a continent, not a country. And like people ask me, oh, how's the situation in Egypt? I'm an Ethiopian, like it's North Africa, it's different. You don't ask a person from Europe how, like if they are from, let's say Germany, how the situation is in Russia. Yeah, sure, Russia's in Europe, but it's like, so the not acknowledging race or like the white guilt or how you experience the black experience in general is kind of as a result of the stereotypes that drive what it means to be black. So that's what I feel like. Because I don't know, because most of my experience has been due to the common stereotypes that exist as Africans. What it does it mean to be an African? Well, we are Africans as a continent, but at the same time, I'm an Ethiopian. I'm an individual that represents a certain country. And acknowledging that comes with acknowledging the different cultures, the diversity that exists within the continent. However, you're commonly stereotyped under the negative stereotypes or positive, but acknowledging that differences exist within continents, within countries is a huge part to how people can determine, Black experience.
Yeah, and I just want to add on to what she said, which is I find stereotypes are the most difficult thing, especially even as a trans student, to get over when you interact whether it's in residence or in class or whatever. It's just that stereotypes are in the mind, and that's the hardest thing. An idea, a notion is something so difficult to get out of somebody's mind if they've been raised thinking this, or they've been raised watching ABCD on TV about starving African children. And for me, recently I had a really big issue that I'm hoping to address through TAXU with some of the other people who share the same beliefs about the Project 10K that was held on Trent campus about a week ago. They did it to build a school in Kenya, which is my country, but the way that they went about it left a bad taste in my mouth. To me, it kind of promoted cultural hegemony. Is that how you say it? Hegemony, because they kind of put themselves as this superior white community that is coming into Africa, that is made out of over 50 countries, to help children in Africa by building them a school using $10,000. Okay, so my first issue was the people who are volunteering didn't even know where in Africa the school was being built. They didn't know the country, they didn't know any statistics about it. They just ran around collecting money for African children who weren't going to school. I'm from Kenya. I know, I've visited the northern part of my country. I know there are struggles, as is struggles with every other country, many countries in the world. But the way they went about it just added fire to the flame, added fire to the idea of these stereotypes of starving African children or uneducated African children. And they just used keywords like water, the girl child, lack of education. They threw around a couple of wildlife pictures in their video to kind of, instigate people to have this emotion of, we're so sympathetic towards these African children. Let's build them a school for $10,000. And it's all good, charity is fantastic, to go out and help somebody, amazing, but how are we in the 21st century going to approach this in a more conscious way? Because we're becoming, we're globalized now, we're all in classes together, there's no more, we're trying to move away from this segregation of defining each other as Africans or Asians or Europeans or whatever. And so that's one of the things that, as a trans student during this African Awareness Month, I feel like we are hoping to address, because as much as we don't point fingers at each other and call each other black or call each other white, or are experiencing the initial effects of racism that was in the States or whatever, there's still underlying notions, there's still subliminal messages that are passed to trans students and that fuel the stereotype. And so the Project 10K thing personally was something that I felt very strongly against, just because of the way it was handled. And you have to give Africa a face. You have to give Kenya a face. You have to give the students who you're hoping to go to the school, you have to give them a face, and you have to give them a name, and you have to recognize them as people, and not just as one general cause towards eliminating poverty, because you think your culture is superior, because you think you have the money, or because you think, I'm gonna do this and at night I'm gonna sleep better. No, if you're gonna approach something in this day and age, I think you have to be more conscious about it, and especially on campus where Africans or people of color are the minority. So I'm hoping that it will go well as we move towards trying to address the issue, but definitely stereotypes are a thing that are present in Trent, and whether or not they're addressed in our faces or whatever, subliminally there are messages that are passed across that promote stereotypes. So yeah.
One thing I wanted to add with the Project 10, I like the idea behind it. However, it reinforces that common colonialism concept where the whites, the white is superior, is rescuing the blacks.
Yeah, the white knight.
Yeah, the white knight rescuing. Yeah, sure, it's a good concept. I appreciate it. However, we need to acknowledge Kenya within itself is a different country. It's not, it's not Africa. It's a country within itself. It dehumanizes who you're helping. It makes it look like, oh, it's a victimology, oh, let's go rescue these poor Africans that need help. No, it dehumanizes the victims. It doesn't put a face to it. It's just, these poor Africans, we need to go help them. And then it just doesn't give it a face, like she said, and it just makes it look like they're just poor Africans. But then recognizing the culture, it's within Kenya. Kenya is diverse within itself, and identifying the air and acknowledging the diversity that exists within Kenya and the different people, the culture. There is poverty. However, you need to acknowledge the other part. Because at the end, if this project does not succeed, who do you think is going to be blamed? It's the Africans. Because when you ask someone for money, they're going to give it at the end, but we're still talking about poverty. Why is that? Because these Africans can't work. We give them money, but at the end, they're still in poverty. It boils it down to technical steps. Development is not a technical step where you give monies to someone and you just expect miracles to happen overnight.
That's a really interesting perspective to take on sort of charity and helping, the Black people. So, in our conversations about sort of the Black experience, we've focused on African Blacks a lot. We haven't really talked about the other, I don't want to say kinds or types of Black people, but there are other Black people that exist in the world. As Black people can say, we are all defined as being Black. Our ethnicity is not really acknowledged. Does anyone want to sort of define between being, for example, between being Black and being Haitian?
Haitians are Black.
Yeah, they are. But you're Black, you're race, you're sort of identified as Black. But within Black people, within Nigerians, you and I are Nigerian, but we come from completely different sects, with completely different cultures. So does someone want to talk about the non-African Black? Is non-African, if I'm putting that well now.
How
So
is
that
it
look and try.
define non-African? Because there are children that are of African descent,
That's true.
born here, that do not see themselves as being African.
But I mean culturally speaking. So for example, if we're born in Grenada, if we're born in Jamaica.
I think that the cultures.
I don't know much about Africa as much, but my understanding of it is that there's a lot of cultural element in all of the countries, and that's on top of the corruption with leaders and stuff like that complicates the situation. And when you talk about other Black people, do you mean Caribbean?
Yes, I'm hoping
West
someone from
Indies.
Did you want to say something? Sorry.
Oh, well.
You've been trying to talk.
Okay. I get it a lot. When somebody sees you, they will classify you as Black. But there are Black people all around the world. For me, I'm from Antigua, in the Caribbean, so I am an Antiguan. So at times somebody came up to me, oh, which part of Africa are you from? And be like, you could have at least asked, oh, hey, where are you from? You shouldn't really assume that I'm from Africa, There are different places. So I'm like, no, I'm from the Caribbean, I'm from Antigua. And they'd be like, oh, Antigua, where's that, in Asia? And I'm like, what? How did I get here? Sometimes I just have to pray and be like, Lord, give me the patience. But it's kind of, people should be more open-minded about where you're from. When I meet somebody, let's say I'll talk to you, I'm not gonna assume, okay, you're Canadian. I'm still asking you, hey, where are you from? Because there are people all over the world here at Trent. So we should all be open-minded about our different backgrounds and be careful how we approach different people.
I'm from the Bahamas, and my mom is white, not both white, Caucasian white, but she's whiter than white. I don't know how to describe it. And then my dad is Black. And in the Bahamas and in other Caribbean countries, we have nationals who are white, and there's a good majority of white individuals. And I don't think when you see individuals and you hit a nationality, well, at first glance, when you hit a nationality, you would associate them with a particular race. And I think that's a problem. And being in the Black community here at Trent, I've only recently experienced where it's like, because there's this whole trend of light skin and dark skin, and I've been called in a jokey way, in a jokey fashion, and I'm okay with it, because in Africa I would be considered colored, right?
I don't know, not in my country, you're black. In my country, there's no variation.
In South Africa? So I would be considered colored. And it was like a new term to me, and I was trying to learn about it. But I just find it interesting how, according to our nationality, we can be any race, and like you said, we should be open to where the person is from and their background, and who they really are.
Yeah. I was going to say, to speak off what Blake was saying, myself, I'm from Bermuda, and from my mother's side, my great-great-grandfather, he's from Sweden, you know, and then I also have Native American on my mom's side, as well as my dad's side going back. But back home, I'm considered black. I'm always identifying myself as black, you know. But then I come out here, and I had a friend, I can't remember the full conversation, but we was talking about something, and then she must have said, "Oh, you're not black." And I said, "Huh?" I said, "Like, what you mean?" She said, "You're not black." I said, "Well, what am I?" She said, "I don't know, but you're not black." You know, so that was like the first time that, you know, it hit me that people do, you know, affiliate a certain tone of color, you know, to being black, and then, you know, being black because you're dark, you're not black. You know?
It's sort of like little things that people say. So racism is sort of, as anyone knows, racism is not overt now. Like, no one's gonna come up to you and call you the N-word or call you the C word if you're a white person, you know what I mean? But little things are said like, you kind of sound like a white person, or you're kind of pretty for a dark girl. Is anyone, and again, this is not just for, no, but this is not just for people of color, this is for everyone else, like, you know? Like, I'm sure everyone here sort of experienced some sort of microaggression at some point. Does anybody want to speak to that? Yeah.
For instance, my great-great-grandfather was German, so I have a German last name. And most of the time, people are like, "Oh, even black people, what's your black name? Like, what's your African name?" I'm like, "Well, really, actually, I don't have one." And when people see my name, they automatically assume that I am not black. And then when I show up, it's like, "Oh, I use this one, so yeah." Like, they want proof to validate the fact that my name is coherent with like my skin color. Well, why do I have to have a name attached to my color? I understand the cultural aspect, like somebody from a certain culture will have a certain name, but just because I don't have an African name or a name from a certain culture doesn't mean that I'm not necessarily black. And there are instances where you will not get a job because of that. My brother had that experience where he went to an interview, he actually got called for the interview. He went, they came out to call his name, and he said his name, and they're like, he got up and they're like, "Not you, like, we're looking for so and so." And he's like, "Yes, that's me." And they were really surprised, and of course after that he didn't get the job. But this is where it goes to show that like sometimes our names plays a factor in how people perceive us. Because like, as soon as, if I hear your name, I already know where you're from. You know what I mean? If I had anything against you, I would just not even try to encounter you at all. And that's my little input.
Thank you. And I think a lot of this conversation today, I have a feeling that people here who are not of color might feel as if things are being said that are maybe, like there's anger towards the white population or the other population. So,
the only question is like, obviously as someone who isn't of color, is just like, I want to know the best way to approach it, that I'm not being racist, I'm not offending you, like, you know, like what she said about people being people. I never thought of it that way, and that's a very valid point. And it's like, I want to know how to correctly but I don't know like what is the best way, like how is it done, you know?
Like how everybody has been saying, be open-minded. Like if you do something that is not like correct, I'm pretty sure you'll be corrected but it also depends on how the person corrects you.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
If you realize that, okay, yeah, you were truly wrong, then you learn from that.
Mhm.
We all make mistakes. It doesn't matter your skin tone, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So like, there's no politically correct way besides treating everybody fairly.
Yeah, yeah. But
That's
like,
how
I guess I just like want it, like, just by like saying people versus our people, like you see that very differently, and it's just like I want to be able to, I guess I want to be able to see it from your perspective, which I'll never be able to see it from, but I guess it's just talking and being open-minded.
I think that these conversations grow, and it's really great that everybody's here regardless of motive. But it's interesting to hear different perspectives and sharing, and some people might not be saying things here because they're not sure exactly what to say. But I commend all of you for having the conversation and being present and accounted for, because various levels of these kinds of conversations are happening at other universities. And I have been at Trent for 8 years, and I think that these conversations are fantastic, and Trent works hard at being inclusive and celebrating diversity and learning about diversity from others' perspectives. And I was at a conference last year in Nova Scotia, and I was at a university where I said something here that would have been like, oh yeah, let's just reach out to the whole population and get people together to do this event. But I was met with, oh no, sorry, the black culture at this university wouldn't like that. And that was end of story, like done. And I thought, oh my gosh, like, why are we segregating? Why is this happening? And that's just the culture that has stemmed from Canadian history that is still present today in the city that I was in. And I think sitting here is an amazing experience because I know that at other universities that's not happening. And people learn from conversation and learn by asking educated, intelligent questions. And that's what's happening today. So I think it's great.
I wish this could go on forever, but unfortunately you can't. But I want to thank every single one of you for coming today and for sitting here and participating and contributing. And I personally learned a lot, and I really hope everyone learned a lot. There's a lot of like full-size candy bars over there, so please help yourself. Thanks to Operd. So please go for it. Thank you.
Thank you.